Hi, I'm Asher. Welcome to my channel, Homebrew Healing, and the 12th installment of the CBT series that I'm running. So, I don't like today's card. I really don't like today's card. And let me tell you why. So, today's card is Assume the Best, which great in theory. But let me tell you why this card does not really resonate with me. Just for context, I was raised by someone who was so paranoid and convinced that the world was conspiring against them that I used to be accused of doing drugs before I had ever touched them. I remember one time we ran into an ex of mine who is actually my now roommate when we were trying to do our taxes. And this person who raised me was convinced that we had conspired and planned this out behind their back. These are just a couple of many examples of pretty extreme paranoia and this sort of belief that the world is out to get me, or people are talking about me and conspiring behind my back. So the idea of assuming the best just feels very counterintuitive to how I was raised. However, I do see the benefits here. I am so sorry about the sun. It's like someone turned the exposure way up. So chances are that someone's going to do something that really annoys you at some point today, right? Or something really annoying is going to happen. And I know that it can be really easy to kind of assume that whatever this annoying thing was a personal attack, personalizing the situation, or to assume that that person had ill will and bad intentions. However, a lot of the time making these assumptions are not only incorrect, but they can also create conflict between us and others, and they can wind up like many other negative thought patterns or processes, really impacting us on an emotional level as well. Assumptions are something that I used to really struggle with in particular. Not so much now. Now, instead of automatically personalizing a situation, I do try and seek clarity. I have found personally that when you do really start to ask those questions for clarification about that annoying thing or situation that happened, a lot of the time you'll discover that that person maybe didn't even know that they were annoying you. I know, especially before I got diagnosed with ADHD, I really struggled with sensory input. Sensory overload is like one of the #1 things that sends me into meltdown. And for me, sensory overload is a lot of noises. So my own personal hell is crowds, parades, really crowded clubs. There's too much noise happening and I shut down. So I'm sure that you can imagine that living with roommates, that can be really challenging sometimes. And especially before I realized that what I was experiencing was sensory overload. Because I didn't recognize it for a long time because I didn't realize that it was ADHD. But once I recognized that, I realized, okay, not only do these sensory things that really grate my brain, literally like a cheese grater on my brain, not only do they actually not annoy a lot of other people don't even notice them. And it's kind of a crazy realization that you come to at some point in your life when you realize that just because you're experiencing a reaction to something doesn't necessarily mean that it's a universal reaction. And in the same way, just because you find something annoying does not necessarily mean that other people in your environment would find that same situation or experience annoying as well. And because of that, we have a tendency to really annoy the crap out of each other sometimes because we don't always recognize other people's triggers as far as being annoyed is concerned, right? I have found in those situations that when you do start digging and asking the right questions, you realize that not only was this person not trying to irritate me, but they didn't even realize that I was getting irritated until I said something. So I do understand the benefit of assuming the best. I guess it's just a little conflictual for me because, again, it is counterintuitive in largely to how I was personally raised. And also being raised as well as a caregiver, and there being so much value and worth put on what I was able to do for others. I found there have been a number of situations in my life where I have been kind of taken advantage of by assuming the best for too long. So, I mean, let's not ignore red flags, and let's make sure that people are matching the energy that we're giving and matching, you know, the time and effort. However, let's also maybe not jump to the worst case scenario when we experience an inconvenience or an annoyance. So, for today, I do challenge and empower all of you as you move throughout your day to just pay attention to any experiences that you have that do elicit a response of irritation or annoyance. For me, I can promise you there will be a multitude. And instead of jumping to the worst case scenario, like, oh, that person intentionally cut me off, or person's a jerk, or whatever, try to assume the absolute best in them. Try to assume that this person is maybe speeding down the highway because they've got a sick mother to get to, or they're late for work and they're a heart surgeon. The point is, we want to kind of evaluate any differences that we experience as far as our reaction to trying to flip that narrative from, assuming a bad thing or the worst thing to assuming the best in people. Because it's not necessarily just about other people, or even about other people at all, right? It's about cultivating a more positive worldview, and it's about, honoring our minds and our bodies by trying to ensure that the feedback and input that we're providing to ourselves is more positive. By interpreting people's actions from a place of kindness, even when they're irritating us, we can greatly enhance our own peace of mind. And that's kind of the goal here. So please ignore my conflicting feelings about this card, because this is a really, really good and important practice to get into. And I have found in so many situations in my own personal experience, dealing with a variety of different cognitive distortions, and being annoyed very easily because of a lot of, my sensory overload issues, that often people do have good intentions. Often people are not conspiring against you or trying to get under your skin or irritate you. Often they just don't realize that they've even upset or hurt you in the first place. So ask questions, try to assume the best, and just kind of evaluate how that affects your own peace of mind. Anyway, thanks for joining me for another CBT session. I am looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Ciao for now, folks.